From Central Indiana's #1 news source, this is Fox 59 Tonight.
And we're back here on Fox 59 Tonight. I'm Cameron Ridle, here with Larry Smith. He's the president and CEO of Fathers and Family Center. And throughout the time that we've been producing this show for the past couple weeks, we've been telling you about cuts and how they've been impacting lives and communities and organizations here in Central Indiana. Since the Trump administration started at the beginning of the year, we've been hearing about cuts to programs and federal programs, and that has a trickle-down effect. And while some people would say, hey, there's a lot of waste going on, a lot of fraud going on, this money from various federal organizations is just being wasted. And Larry, a lot of what you guys do, as you said, it is free for the fathers who need to use it and take advantage of it. But it is not free to put on. Much of it is funded by grants from various levels of government. When you hear waste and fraud and these things, what's your reaction when you know what that money is being used for, at least in your organization?
Yeah, it's a great question, Cameron. So, no one that I've ever met, and I'm 55 years old now. No one that I've ever met is for waste, fraud, or abuse. Right? It just doesn't happen. Nobody is for that. Having said that, the vast majority of federal dollars or state dollars or local dollars that go to nonprofit organizations are not subject to waste, fraud, or abuse. So when we see these cuts, we're not just talking about numbers. We're talking about human beings who are being impacted. And I will remain, because I'm a Christian, a believer. I will remain hopeful that a lot of those cuts will be restored. But in the interim, it's very, very difficult.
You deal a lot with jobs and helping people find jobs. And one of the things that I keep hearing people say, hey, is if you have a job right now,
Mhm.
keep your job.
Oh, absolutely. Definitely keep your job. Hopefully, you don't have a great deal of debt, but if you do, there's a little bit of financial advice. There's a balance between paying down debt versus keeping cash in hand. You want to have at least 3 months of your salary, hopefully, in the bank to weather any emergencies. But things, I believe, unfortunately, are going to get a lot tougher before they get better.
We heard just this week about the Trump administration saying the Department of Education, which I thought was closed, is now going to start collecting on sending student loan payments to collections to collect that debt that they say needs to be repaid. I ask you this question because all of this, you see the struggles in what was a good economy.
Hmm.
Um, Now, as we're getting into this tariff war, people are losing their jobs at the federal government. Grants are being cut. How much harder is it going to be as a father? Is this world shaping up right now?
Well, I think it's going to be much more difficult, unfortunately. I mean, so give you an example. If we think about healthcare, if healthcare and health insurance is being cut, we know historically, empirically, that healthcare costs actually increase,
Mhm.
and so visits, for poor people, for those who don't have adequate health insurance. The emergency room becomes their primary care physician, right? So that's just one example of how these cuts are going to hurt real people. Most people who are in a lot of debt now, it's because of medical debt. In addition, to some of the other choices around credit and all of that. But medical debt, which you cannot predict, which you cannot control, that is a major issue. And so, too often today, fathers have to choose between paying their energy bill, paying their rent, paying a medical bill, or buying food. And those are choices that nobody should have to make.
Is there, I'm also hearing, uh, n- one of this administration's ideas is to increase the population, increase birth
Mhm.
rates. Um, from what you're seeing out there, is this an environment where it's like, now's a good time to have a child?
I think Michael Jackson said, "If you can't feed the baby, then don't have the baby." Right? So that's some tough advice. I mean, if you look at most of the Western world, birth rates are falling,
Mhm.
and there are a whole lot of sociological reasons for that. But at the end of the day, I think that's going to be a pretty tough message when the immediate economic future is extremely uncertain.
Um, what do you want people uh, to understand as far as, um, well, one, I mean, you guys are doing great things, but let me just go back to what could be in jeopardy if folks don't understand and see the value in what it is you're doing?
Well, again, I'll mention again that the average annual income of the fathers who come to us when they meet us is about $11,000. So they're already living, very very low on the economic scale. And so when you take away resources that are designed to help them come out of that, you really hurt society. So let me give a specific example. There's a great scholar, Dr. Richard Chase. He's done these studies. When a father goes through a program like ours, there is a direct economic impact not only on him personally, but also on his children. They earn more money, they pay more taxes, they contribute more to society. There's a multiplier economic effect for going through programs like ours. This is absolutely not a handout, it is a hand up, not only for the individual, but for the family and for society at large. Further, we do everything that everyone agrees is important, right? Reducing crime, getting more people on the tax rolls, bringing families back together. We do all that at Fathers and Families Center. And so when organizations like ours are impacted, the opposite of that happens. And so I just appeal to our lawmakers, to the president, to the other decision makers. Please think very, very carefully about cutting programs like Fathers and Family Center, the dollars that we receive, because that really will have a negative effect on society.
What do you think, Larry? You know, you're appealing to the state government right now, but how is our city doing as far as um, being a place where you want to raise a family?
Yeah, so I think that raising a family. I think there are many components. Certainly, the socioeconomic aspect is important. Crime is important. Is it a city that believes in healthcare and reducing diseases that are avoidable, diabetes and so on. A lot of times, people have diabetes, especially in the African American community, because healthy food costs more than cheap food does,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you get a can of Coke, that's pretty cheap as opposed to making some other choices. And so we have to understand that this is a system, right? It's not just one thing, and so all of it affects the other. So if food prices are higher, and there are things that we can't control, right? Crops and all that due to bad weather, but we need to have affordable food, affordable health care. And so, how's Indianapolis doing? I think that if we look at the economic indicators overall, we're doing relatively well. But there are a lot of people who sort of, as they say, and I don't really like this phrase, but they fall between the cracks because of their economic situation, and that is something that I firmly believe that we can turn around if we have the will to do it.
We just had RFK Jr. and we had Dr. Oz here in town who said they want to make Indiana healthy again. They were with the governor. You mentioned the types of foods and cokes and things, and the governor has signed an executive order asking the Family Services Administration to ask the federal government
Mhm,
to ban what they consider junk food from being purchased um, uh, with a SNAP card.
mhm,
And the first thing, obviously, that's got a lot of people riled up.
mhm,
And some people say, yeah, you shouldn't be using federal government funds to get your Coke or get your bag of chips.
mhm,
And I feel like that is a very glamorous way of looking at the reality
mhm,
of the true landscape of even a place like Indianapolis. You know, we talk about food deserts,
mhm,
and we talk about what is not in certain areas. You know, you go to the east side, I don't recall seeing a farmer's market out there.
mhm.
I don't recall seeing a Fresh Time over on Mid-Hoffer or on 42nd and Post. But what I do know, there's a gas station,
Right.
and I do know that there's a little convenience store. And so uh, you literally got to get what you can get sometime, because what when fathers come to you,
Mhm,
it's also sometimes, and maybe more times than we think, it's the fight for survival to where it's life or death. And sometimes
mhm.
that dinner came from the gas station.
Absolutely. I have to admit, I'm kind of two minds about this. those who know me well know that I don't have the best diet, and I can afford to eat better. I just don't have the discipline usually to do it.
Mhm,
Um, and so we all have choices to make about that. But here's what I find interesting: in a nation in which we talk constantly about freedom,
mhm,
freedom of choice, etc. It is concerning to me that there are some in power who want to take away freedom and choice from other people who are not sort of economically sound. So
mhm,
on the one hand, I have this tension, right, about we all should eat better. And again, I will go back to frequently, all too frequently, the foods that are worse for you are cheaper.
mhm,
So we should make better choices, but we should be able to afford to make better choices.
mhm.
At the same time, I just find a great, I'll just use the word irony that in a nation in which we talk a lot about freedom, there are those in power who would remove freedom of choice, but only from the poor citizens
Mhm. And on selective
on selective, right?
topics.
And again, let's raise the price of cigarette, the tax on
Mhm,
cigarettes, right? I mean, if we look at the cost, the not only the economic cost, but the social cost of tobacco and alcohol in our society, the two drugs that are abused most. I mean, we can talk about fentanyl and crack and meth and all that, but at the end of the day, alcohol and tobacco are the two drugs that destroy more lives than any other by far in this nation. So fine, let's tax those at a much higher rate so we can recoup some of these costs.
and it's funny that you mentioned that because in the same week that RFK and Dr. Oz were here, we found out about that $2.4 billion shortfall. And one of the things that's been suggested is putting a tax. They call
Hmm.
it a sun tax on some of the
Yes.
same things that you just brought up. And they don't want to do that. They've
No.
never wanted to do that. Now they're like, well, we might have to do something because we're missing $2.4 billion.
Right.
However, they're quick to no, you can't have a bag of Ruffles off your Snap card,
Mhm.
but we won't tax, cigarettes.
Right, and I think that that is unfortunate. Again, of two minds here. The right thing to do, in my view, is to make healthy food more affordable, so people can make better choices. But as you said, going to the gas station, going to the convenience store, you buy a banana that may cost you $2 or $3 there. It's going to cost you less than maybe about $1 for three or four in a grocery store, and that's the kind of situation that we're dealing with. A can of Fago is going to cost you maybe 50 or 75 cents, maybe $1 on the outside.
Mhm.
Bottled water is probably going to be $1.50 or $2 or more. And so we have to fix that. If we're actually really serious about our population becoming healthier, we got to figure out a way to fix that.
And I don't know if those, the folks in the power that be, they probably have and I don't know, I could be wrong, but I would, um, ponder if they've been into a gas station,
Mhm.
um, on 42nd and, Midhofer.
In Hoffer, Post Road, et cetera. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
To know what's there. But of course, the goal is always to improve things, and folks have been fighting to get more stuff on the Far East Side and other areas like it. But the reality is that is um, cutting off a source without a plan.
Right, and we just have to think more carefully, in my view. And you mentioned Secretary Kennedy, Dr. Oz being here. The another issue, obviously, that they talked about are vaccines, and
Hmm.
apparently Secretary Kennedy has hired someone who is not exactly a scientist to look into this link between autism and vaccines, which has been debunked over and over and over again. Unfortunately, we live in a society where not only misinformation but intentional disinformation is rampant, and people, for reasons that I cannot quite comprehend, will sort of cling on to misinformation and disinformation when the science is very, very clear. That's it's a head scratcher for me. I don't understand it, but we have to find a way to restore public confidence in science and in what we know to be empirically true, because otherwise, the consequences are dire. We saw that with COVID. We had hundreds of thousands of people who died, in my view, unnecessarily because of misinformation and disinformation. And as someone who is pro-life, that is very, very disappointing to me.
You talked about misinformation and disinformation and intentionally trying to share misinformation. Um, Is that something that you guys have thought about talking about at Fathers and Family Center? Because as dads are literally trying to figure out what do I do,
Mhm.
it's hard to trust the information that's out there because the loudest people are not always right.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, we tend to steer. I mean, we're not a political organization
Hmm.
by any means. We don't care if you are a D or an R or an I or nothing in front of or after your name. That doesn't matter at all to us. When it comes though to empirical evidence around fatherhood, yeah, we focus a lot on that, and so that's why I mentioned the fact that African American fathers are the most involved. Right? We know that empirically. Similarly, when fathers of whatever race are involved actively in the lives of their children, your kid has higher self esteem, is less likely to drop out of school, gets higher grades, is less likely to be in a gang, and so forth. And so we focus on that empirical evidence to help fathers understand that their role is crucial. But even beyond all the empirical evidence, we want to foster stronger relationships, that love relationship, the natural bond between a father and his children. That's where we tend to focus. So we don't really get into political arguments.
And and of course, it's not just the political argument. It's literally that these are facts. Like, how do you tell them? Um, Look, you might be hearing this on TV, but here's the true resources
Right.
of where to go, why you should get measles, or how you should find the information to decide if you want to give your kid the measles shot. Like, how do you teach them where those
Yeah,
resources
now
are?
that's a very good question, and so yeah, we'll say go to the CDC website or others where the scientific data are there, and they can make a decision for themselves, right? And
Hmm.
so we're providing the information,
Hmm.
we're telling them where they can go, but I mean, you deal with people all the time with your radio show.
Hmm.
I can think of one person in particular,
Hmm.
that for a lot of people, unfortunately, not only do facts not matter, but it's almost as if the truer it is, the more that you can prove it empirically and scientifically, that is going to automatically be rejected. Honest to God, I don't know what to do with that.
Hmm.
I really don't. I'm a person who's reasonably well educated, and I live in a world that it's important to have facts and it's
Hmm.
important to have empirical evidence. Um, there are a lot of people in our country for whom that is not true, and it's one thing when it's just a difference of opinion,
Hmm.
right? But it's another thing when lives are at stake.
Correct.
And so, for example, I just read today that the government, the federal government is going to cut like $40 billion from the FDA,
Hmm.
and now they're not going to, and 20,000 individuals. Now they're not going to be able to do testing of milk, and I'm sure that's only the tip of the iceberg. And so if we're not testing food, if we're not doing those things that we know scientifically are important, where is that going to lead ultimately? Well, more sickness, more death, and higher healthcare costs. And so my plea is just really again to our leaders, federal, state, and local, please think very, very carefully about what you're doing that's going to have long-term effects.
Larry Smith, it's been good talking to you. Tell the folks again where they can get all the information that they can and the wealth of knowledge and services that you guys have at Fathers and Family Center.
Please visit us at www.ffcindiana.org. That's Fathers and Family Center, ffcindiana.org. Come to visit us at 2835 North Illinois Street. Find us on Facebook. We are here to serve any father, 16 above, of any race, any class. We just want to equip fathers and empower families so that children thrive.
All right, Larry Smith, again, thank you for your knowledge. Thank you for your time. We'll have to have you back here soon. You have to come on the radio shows
I
and
will look
soon and
forward
talk.
to it.
You'll be as I always say, you're the other Larry.
Yeah,
The other Larry. Eventually, we can do this live and we could have a phone line and even pictures. And then that other Larry might call in with a paper bag on his head.
yeah, I will look forward to that for sure.
All right, that's going to do it for us here on Fox 59 tonight. Fox 59 News at 10 is coming up here on the app. Again, if you're on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. And if you are on the CTV app, make sure you keep us downloaded. I'm Cameron Riddle. I'll see you Sunday on the radio on 106.7 WTLC and Hot 100.9 for Open Lines. Have a good night.